Hi everybody, this video is special for 100 subscribers and I want to thank you all for your views, subscribes and likes. And now you can see graphic cards from 1993 to 2016. I always show you GPU and some specs, and I will talk a little bit about every GPU. For info about my GPUs, I'm using GPU-Z from Tech Power Up. It's great utility that can show you your GPU specs, it's freeware. I'll put link in description under this video, but it doesn't work properly with some older GPUs. Cirrus Logic CL-GD5420-75QC-C. I hope I'm reading this properly. Core clock was 75 MHz. This one has 512 KB RAM. Max memory was 1 MB. I bought this one only for 50 Czech crowns. That's something like $2.50. It's ISA port. I'm gonna try something like Doom or Wolfenstein 3D on this card. Cirrus Logic made mostly GPUs for low-cost PCs. Its main competitors were VGA chips from Oak Technologies, Trident Microsystems, and Paradise. This company still exists, but they stopped making GPUs when Intel introduced i740 GPU. S3 3064V+. It's PCI card. It has 1 MB RAM. Release price was $249, and I bought this one for 50 Czech crowns. It's something like $2.50. S3 was also making Verge series, but it couldn't compete against ATI, NVIDIA and 3DFX. S3 Graphics Limited was bought by VIA Technologies, and finally it was sold to HTC Corporation. Permedia 2 from 3D Labs. This was my first graphic card, it's AGP, but it was very slow, and I was mostly playing only some freeware games on this card. It was the first low-cost OpenGL GPU. Later 3D Labs was acquired by Creative Labs. Gainward Dragon 2000. This is a really interesting card because it has two chipsets. One is for 2D and one is for 3D applications. 3D chipset is Voodoo Rush and 2D chipset is Macronix. There were also alternative 2D chipsets from Alliance Promotion, AT25 or AT3D. They wanted to create cards with Trident for 2D part, but it never happened. Voodoo Rush had the same specs as Voodoo 1, but it was a little bit slower, because it had to share memory bandwidth with CRTC on 2D chip. This GPU didn't sell well and was discontinued within 1 year. And finally 3DFX was bought by NVIDIA, but NVIDIA didn't provide any technical support for 3DFX cards. NVIDIA had some kind of program in which you could trade your 3DFX GPU for NVIDIA GPU with similar performance. I'm using this card on Windows 98. There are some unofficial drivers for Windows XP, but they don't have any OpenGL and DirectX support, so I just have to use older OS with this GPU. Radeon 7000. Radeon R100 was the first generation of Radeon. This is RV100, its budget version of R100. It was called Radeon VE, and finally in 2001 ATI rebranded its product, so its final name is Radeon 7000. So if you are looking for drivers on AMD website, you have to search for 7000 series. There were more versions of this GPU, some were PCI, some were AGP. They had also different core clock and different RAM types like DDR or SGRAM. This one is 144 MHz with SGRAM. It was weak against its competitor GeForce2 MX, is this one, but it had better dual monitor support. Unfortunately, this one has only one VGA port. This GPU was made by High-Tech Information System Limited. It supports DirectX 7, but GPU-Z shows only DirectX 6. NVIDIA GeForce2 MX. This graphic card was entry level of GeForce 2 series and competitor to Radeon 7000 series. I'll show you again. What I really don't like about this GPU is this bed cooler. I have to replace it for a new one. I bought this one for $10. It's AGP. NVIDIA GeForce 2 MX 400. Unfortunately, this one doesn't work. I bought this one for something like $2. MSI NVIDIA GeForce4 MX 440. I bought this one for 200 Czech crowns. That's something like $9. This one replaced GeForce 2 MX, and it was better than its competitor Radeon 7500 and even GeForce 2 Ti and Ultra. It had similar performance like Radeon 9000, but it had worse DirectX 8 shader support. Sapphire Radeon 9200 SE. It's cheaper version of Radeon 9200, but there was a difference in GPU clock. I bought this one for 200 Czech crowns, that's something like $9. It's AGP. Sapphire ATI Radeon 9550. This one is from 2003, but it was never used. Everything is new unopened. In the box we can find graphic card itself, reduction from S-Video to composite, composite video cable, this beautiful sticker, support CD, and manual. I like how does it look when I turn it on. I bought it for 250 Czech crowns, that's something like $12. ASUS NVIDIA GeForce 6200. This was my first new graphic card, and it was upgraded from Permedia 2 with only 8 megabytes of RAM, so it was a huge difference. And for me it was the first real gaming card. Price of this GPU was something like $53 in 2006 in my country. Point of view: NVIDIA GeForce 7300 GS. I was using this card for a very long time, for games like Prince of Persia Trilogy and Flatout. This is 256 megabytes version, but it supported 512 megabytes if your system memory was at least 1 gigabyte of RAM. For me it was a very good graphic card, but cooler was really crappy and I will have to replace it for a new one. And I think it was first card that I used for emulation of old games. ATI Sapphire X 1950 Pro. This GPU was selling with free game in the box. For X1950 it was the Da Vinci Code, and for X1950 GT it was Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon 2. I bought this one for 300 Czech crowns, that's something like $14. I think release price was $200, and its competitor was NVIDIA GeForce 7900 GS. Gainward NVIDIA GeForce 8600 GT. This was mid-range GPU. Its competitor was HD 2600 XT. That's this one. Heatsink is copper. Under full load it's pretty hot, over 70 degrees Celsius. 8600 GT and 8600 GTS were basically the same, but with different memory and core clock frequencies. GIGABYTE ATI Radeon HD 2600 XT. I bought this one for 390 Czech crowns, that's something like $19. The HD 2000 graphic cards competed with NVIDIA's GeForce 8 series. I like how this passive looks. Gigabyte made GeForce 8600 GT with the same design, so you might have GeForce 8600 GT that looks just like that. MSI NVIDIA GeForce 9600 GT. This one was mid-range. It was based on Tesla architecture, just like GeForce 8 series, but it supported PCIe 2.0. GeForce 8 series supported only PCIe 1.1. I wanted this one when I was a teenager, but I couldn't afford it, so I had my old GeForce 7300 GS. Sapphire ATI HD 4830. Basically it's cheaper version of HD 4850 with some disabled functions, but still it was high-end. Its competitor was GeForce 8800 GT. I bought this one for 450 Czech crowns, that's something like $22. GIGABYTE NVIDIA GeForce GTX 260 Core 216 OC. This is the most beautiful card that I have. It's high-end. It had the same core as GTX 280. Chips that weren't good enough for GTX 280 were used for GTX 260. There were two versions, GTX 260 and GTX 260 Core 216. The second one was a little bit faster. I bought this one for 500 Czech crowns, that's $24. Pegatron NVIDIA GeForce 315. GeForce 300 series were basically the same stuff as 200 series, but they were available only for OEMs. This one was probably made for Hewlett-Packard, and it's just rebranded GeForce 210. And I can tell you, it's terrible, terrible. It doesn't work with 64-bit Windows. I tried like 5 different drivers and 3 different motherboards, and it was constantly crashing on 32-bit OS, especially on emulators. But I really needed this card for Mafia 2 and Beowulf the game. MSI NVIDIA GeForce GT 430. This one was entry level, and the GeForce 400 series was the first with new Fermi architecture, and it was successor to Tesla architecture. It was NVIDIA's first chip with support of OpenGL 4.0 and DirectX 11. I bought this one for 500 Czech crowns, that's $24. ASUS NVIDIA GeForce GTX 460. I really like this one, and I like how it smells. Heat pipes are from copper, so it smells like some old coins. It's from 2010, but in some older games like San Andreas and Far Cry, it has similar performance like GTX 1050 Phoenix from ASUS, probably because it has better memory bus. It can even run games like Super Mario Odyssey on Yuzu emulator. I bought used one for 900 Czech crowns, That's something like $41. GIGABYTE Radeon R7 250. This one is overclock edition. Standard core clock is 925 MHz. This one is 970 MHz. I'm still using it in my secondary PC. AMD has very bad OpenGL support, but with this GPU I was able to play games on Cemu emulator with OpenGL and on Yuzu if I used Vulkan. This one is mid-range. Entry level was R5, mid-range was R7, and high-end and enthusiast were R9. ASUS NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1050. This one is mid-range. I bought this one used for $100 and it was still under warranty. The new one was something like $200 in my country. GTX 1050 had 2 GB of VRAM, but there were some gaming laptops with 4 GB of VRAM. It has even higher core clock than 1050 Ti, but less CUDA cores and VRAM. It's good enough for emulators like Yuzu and Cemu, because it has excellent OpenGL and Vulkan support. This is ASUS Phoenix version, and it looks just like 1050 Ti. ASUS Phoenix GeForce GTX 1050 Ti. Again mid-range GPU. I bought this one used for $105. The new one was something like $205 in my country. I'm using this card right now and I have no reason for upgrade. Mostly I'm playing older games, but I need this card for video editing and emulation of old games. So that's my GPU collection, and now I have some questions for you. What was your first graphic card? What was your worst graphic card? And what card are you using right now? Write me in comments below. And if you like this video, you can hit like button or subscribe button, and thanks for watching.